You are fake news. Go ahead.
Obviously, the kids today never heard that song before.
Yeah, it's a classic. I'm surprised they don't.
Yeah,
or maybe
talking about a revolution.
Yeah.
He said, if you're going to carry a picture of Chairman Mao, you're not going to make it with anybody anyhow. And he's talking about changing the Constitution. Change your mind instead. The real revolution is people who stand for freedom. All right? And it reminds me of something Ayanna Pressley said the other day, is that voting is an act of resistance. Voting is not an act of resistance. Not voting is an act of resistance. But, I digress. So, let's get into the quote of the day.
All right. Quote of the week.
Quote of the week
is going to be, the great revolution in the history of man, past, present, and future, is the revolution of those determined to be free. And that was said by John F. Kennedy. And it kind of ties in with the song that we played, the song of the week, the Beatles' Revolution. And that's what everybody should be striving for, and what most people throughout all of mankind have strived for. They just want to be free to live their life, make their own decisions, raise their family, and just that. And that's all I'm looking for, and that's all what I thought everybody.
Called being an American.
Exactly. That's the essence of America, and that's what's at stake right now. That's what we're fighting against. It's, socialism versus capitalism, which is essentially, tyranny versus freedom. Capitalist economies are free markets and, free society, as opposed to socialism, which always leads to communism and always leads to, death, destruction, and despair.
Yeah.
So powerful song, powerful quote.
Yeah.
Let's get into you want to start with the fail of the week?
Yeah, let's do the fail of the week. This week's fail of the week comes to you from Twitter, out of all places. Democrat Darlene McDonald put up a poll on her Twitter. Now, her followers, very majority Democrat and liberals, and maybe some Marxists too. She thought maybe she was going to get a good poll that she can share to everybody.
She thought she was setting
show
it up.
Everybody up, right?
Yep,
so she makes a poll. Say, which group is more harmful to America, Antifa or QAnon? QAnon is a bunch of conspiracy theorists that love Trump, that think Trump's fighting against the evil globalist pedophiles, which he is, which is some truth to it. But
yeah, they do have some crazy conspiracy theories, but they are right about certain things.
Yeah, whatever. They don't mean any harm. They're not going out with Molotov cocktails and blowing up buildings like Antifa.
They're not beating up people for being white.
So 200,000 people voted in this poll on Twitter. 90.2% voted Antifa, and only 9% voted for QAnon.
Yeah.
So that's fail of the week.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. She thought it was going to be overwhelming the other way, and she got a rude awakening.
That's some anecdotal evidence right there of what's going to happen in November. People are so sure that Trump's going to be out of office.
Well, because the Democrats are being loud and screaming and shouting, and the Republicans, a lot of times, I mean, you do have some that are vocal and talk about it, but most people are just going about their business, going to work every day, and they're just going to punch that ticket for Trump, and they're not going to talk about it. So everybody thinks the majority is, the Democrats and the Biden supporters because they're being loud. But you're going to, even that poll right there, because it was, you didn't have to attach her name to it. It was an, anonymous poll that, she thought all her friends were going to vote the other way.
Yeah.
And it completely backfired.
Right.
So it's telling.
Now, next is our hero of the week. This is a great story.
Yeah, this is an awesome story. Police officer Sherry Howard out of Miami of Ohio. There was a puppy in a car, 131 degrees, would have died probably within the hour. And she tried to jimmy the door open first, couldn't get it open. So she smashed the window, saved the puppy, gave it some water. I mean, that puppy drank the water right off the hot concrete. So it was dehydrated. That it was, suffering and in pain. And I actually watched a video, it was about a year ago. A veterinarian went on a hot day and went in a car, even with the windows cracked the windows, got in the car with the thermostat. Within a couple minutes, it was like 80 degrees out that day. Within a couple minutes, it was over 100. Within 30 minutes, he was sweating. He was feeling weak. He was feeling, it was like 130 degrees, kind of like what happened with the puppy. So, so it's awesome. She's a hero. She saved the puppy. And then she just, let everybody know, do not leave puppies or children in the car. Even if you think you're going to be in and out for a couple minutes, do not do it.
Yeah, so. And I thought this was a good story because in the wake of the Black Lives Matter, defund the police movement, you got a police officer, a woman police officer, going out and saving a dog's life. Now we talk about how evil the police are. We want to point to the couple times a year where a tragic event happens and think that happens to every cop and every cop's bad. But really, I mean, imagine a world with a defunded police and you lock your keys in the car. You're 2 hours away from your house to go get the spare. Yep. And your dog's in the car.
Cops are overwhelmingly good. There is bad cops, no doubt about that. There's going to be bad in every single profession, in all walks of life. But overwhelmingly, cops are good. They got into that field to help people. It's not like they get paid tons of money. So clearly they did it because they have a passion to help people. So it's, that's a great story, and she is a hero, and it just goes against the narrative. All we've been hearing is about how terrible cops are, and all they do is, pull people over unfairly and kill unarmed people, and they're just the dregs of society, and people want to defund the police. And so it just shows you that most of them are there to help. And that's what they, set out to do when they decided to become a cop. So it's a great story.
So let's get right into the big news of the week. The DNC just had a 3-day rally.
Yeah, the Democratic National Convention.
It was a mess. It was just a joke.
It was actually pretty entertaining. It was pretty. It was hilarious.
It was I almost thought they were trying to be funny.
It was like a comedy skit.
Very tacky, very corny. The thing, okay, so I was blown away by the double standards and the double downs of, for one, Elizabeth Warren, who got caught saying she was Native American, and they found out she's not Native American. I didn't notice that. Anyways, she got caught. She wasn't Native American. She comes out and starts talking to the Native American people in the DNC, like it's no big deal. Like we don't remember that.
Yeah, nobody remembers that she lied.
That's why you get called Native. Pocahontas.
And then that was one. And then you have, out of all people that they could have come up and talk about Trump, they have Bill Clinton come on stage and talk about Trump's conduct in the Oval Office. That is literally the worst person they could have had to come up there. So to talk about conduct in the Oval Office, this is a man who had an affair with Monica Lewinsky, one of his interns, who, got a blowjob in the Oval Office, who, stuck a cigar in unknown places in Monica Lewinsky, and he's going to be the one to talk about conduct in the Oval Office? That is hilarious. I mean, they literally chose the worst person possible to talk about that.
And then let's not forget Hillary Clinton comes out, and what does she want to talk about? The 2016 election and how you can lose an election and still win by 3 million votes.
She thought
she's nuts, dude.
Yeah, she still can't get over that because the media and everybody thought that she was going to win in a landslide. Trump had no chance. She thought that. All her supporters thought that, and she was in for a rude awakening. And
why am I up by more points? You say
she still can't.
Why aren't I 50 points ahead, you might ask? Well, the choice for working families has never been clearer. I need your help to get Donald Trump's record out to everybody. Nobody should be fooled.
Get over it. I mean, she's an evil, wicked person, and people obviously saw through that, and they saw her for what she was because they hated her more than they hated Trump.
She wrote a book that I don't think she really wrote. She just had someone write a book for her.
Yeah.
After the election about how it's everyone else's fault. Jim Comey, Trump fans, everyone, the voters. She should have won. It was supposed to be her election.
She can't.
The Russians.
She thought she was going to win the landslide, so she can't get over it for that fact. She also can't get it over that for the fact that she won the popular vote. But the popular vote has never mattered. The popular vote makes no sense because if we abolished the Electoral College and we went to popular vote, you would have 3 states that would own the entire election. Now, what's good for 3 states? Is it good for all 50? No. That's exactly why the Electoral College was put into place. We want it, we need everybody to be represented. throughout all 50 states.
To put it in more context, if you still can't grasp that concept, if you still are like, well, who cares if 3 cities decide the fate of the whole country? We're all the same country, right? Well, okay, imagine in another world, okay? It just looks just like Earth, same people as Earth, same countries as Earth, but it was all one. The whole Earth was one country, and they did votes. Popular vote wins. Can you imagine if the people of China get together and decide what they want to do in the world, and we'd have to just do whatever they say?
Yeah, and I mean, and even
populations scatter in different areas of the map, and they have different interests.
Exactly.
The people in Montana don't have the same interests as people in Florida.
Yeah.
The people in New York don't have the same interests as the people in Texas.
Yeah.
So you have to distribute and represent people according to the map.
And you do get more electoral votes based on your population. So it's not like each state gets exactly the same amount of electoral votes. That wouldn't be fair because there is different populations. So it does go by how many people you have in your state, and that's how many electoral votes you get. Now, like we said, even on a smaller scale, even if we don't take the whole world, just take the United States. What's good for major cities like New York and California is not going to be good for the Midwest, which is mostly farming, and it's a completely different way of life. So you can't have a couple states decide for everybody because it's not going to work. So the Electoral College is actually, that's the best system that's ever been put in place. I mean, if they come up with something better, then I'm all for it. But that was well thought out and well executed, and it really does keep everybody's interests. Everybody's interests matter as opposed to, just New York and California, and those 2 states alone would dominate because of population. So and then one more thing, which is shows the hypocrisy and just the pure comedy. Michelle Obama gets up there and talks about the horrors of Trump putting children in cages. She must have forgot that her husband, Barack Obama, was actually the one that built those cages.
Yeah, I got built.
And the videos and the pictures that were circulating years ago, and they were trying to talk about Trump's putting these children in cages. Oh my gosh, he's so terrible. Those photos were actually from 2014. They were from the Obama era. He built those cages, and those pictures were from his presidency.
A lot of those pictures aren't even real either. A lot of those pictures are fake.
But the one that they were using...
But here's the thing, though, Justin, and a lot of people need to hear this. This is important. They're not putting kids in cages like they say they are. They're not. They're putting them in institutional places that have, like, giant, nice beds and TVs and little play areas.
That's like intake, essentially.
Yeah, that's
it's just when they first get separated.
They only go there for, like, an hour
exactly.
maybe. And then they go to these nice places where they figure out what they're going to do.
And that's good to talk about. But I was just talking about the pure hypocrisy.
But that's what I'm saying.
She says it was Trump, but the cages were built by her husband.
Because of the media, people actually think that when a person crosses the border illegally with a child, that they get arrested and they take the kid and put him in a cage and let him sit there for days and days and days.
Yeah, and
they actually think that.
Yeah, it's
doesn't happen.
The media is very powerful, and they know that, and they get caught lying over and over and over again, and people are still unwilling to fact check them and are unwilling to to see them for what they are. Journalism is dead. Modern journalism is dead. It's no longer unbiased. They are completely biased, towards the left and the Democrats, and they're the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. They really are.
I want to go back to the DNC for a second too, and I was watching it, and I couldn't help but to notice that it's all scripted. It's all written down. Everything looks so fake and staged, and it's all. Let's not look at Biden. Let's not talk about Joe Biden. Let's not even let Joe Biden speak. Even Joe Biden's were all pre-recorded speeches, pre-recorded phone calls and stuff like that. But let's focus on Billie Eilish and Cardi B. Yeah. Because they know what's going on in the world.
It's honestly,
they're so smart.
It's all a performance. Yeah. That's why they bring in the celebrities, because people are influenced by celebrities. And everything's written, either pre-recorded or, they're reading off of a teleprompter. It's just so fake.
But it seemed like it just wasn't genuine. And not only that, it was almost like they were begging you to vote for them. Please, this is the end of the world if you don't vote for us. This is the end of America as we know it. Meanwhile, hold on, so let me just finish this point real quick. Meanwhile, you got Trump, literally all of his policies put America first. Every single one puts America in front of everything else. Takes you out of the Paris deal. Takes you out of the globalist foreign policy agenda. They trot out people left one by one. They just keep trotting out these people. You don't even know who these people are. They're just random people, and they want you to think, oh, look at this person. Her dad died of COVID. Let's hear what she has to say. She gets on the mic, and she's like, my dad was a Trump supporter, and he died because he followed Donald Trump. And it's almost so doom and gloom. Like, if Donald Trump's going to kill you if you vote for him. He's going to kill you. And then they got these Republicans, supposedly Republicans, that are I'm a lifelong Republican, and I'm voting for Joe Biden. Joe Biden's a great guy. And it's like, yeah, how are you a lifelong Republican and you're voting for Biden all of a sudden? That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, they had a couple of people, and one of the guys said he was a lifelong Republican and he was going to vote for Biden this time. But once you actually dig into this guy's background, he
was a Democrat.
4 out of the 5 last elections, he was registered Democrat and vote Democrat. So maybe at one point he was a Republican.
The media thinks that you're not going to look into this stuff. They just think you're going to listen to us, shut up, listen to us, do what we say. But people actually did the work. They did the research. They found out who this guy was. They researched his background and Twitter, however they found out. Ben Shapiro was the one who cracked this story. He turned out he's just a regular Democrat like everybody else.
Yeah,
it's all fake. It's all
a
nonsense.
Performance. It's truly a performance. That's why they bring in all the celebrities and all the star power, because it's a Hollywood performance. It really is. And it's funny though. Even if you do, watch it. Like all those things we said about Bill Clinton talking about conduct in the Oval Office, Michelle Obama talking about cages and blaming Trump when they were built by her husband. I mean, it's so weird that people don't see through that, because they're even plainly saying all this stuff, and they must just think that their supporters are really, really dumb. Yeah. Because a lot of this stuff is right out in the open. It's not even hidden. You don't even have to do too much research or really look into it to see that they're lying, and it's the hypocrisy in it. And it's just I was like, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to watch this. And it was actually hilarious. It was truly it was funny. I was just thinking, this is like a comedy skit or like a circus.
It felt like a Tim and Eric episode. It did.
It was pretty funny.
I was watching Trump the other day. He was talking to the leaders of Iraq. And they were discussing the past few years and how ISIS is pretty much wiped off the map. And I'm watching Trump, and I'm watching him converse with these people, and he's strong. He's got his face is completely strong. He's not falling asleep. And I'm trying to picture Joe Biden in that position, like, huh? Oh, who? Iran? No, it's Iraq. Oh, Pakistan? Oh, Afghanistan? Like I could not imagine. Just do yourself that favor when you see, watch when he goes into these talks and just think to yourself, what if this was Biden instead?
Well, he was in New Hampshire, and he said the great state of Virginia we're in, and he didn't even know he doesn't even know what state he's in. He doesn't even know. He thought he was running for Senate. So can you really imagine?
He called himself the husband of Joe Biden.
Great. God, love it. How are you? Hey, everyone. I'm Joe Biden's husband. As you heard tonight, excuse me, you can see why she's...
I'm the husband of Joe Biden.
Can you actually see him standing up for our country, negotiating whether it's peace deals, trade deals? I mean, can you actually imagine him being commander in chief and having to protect and lead the free world?
Yeah.
Can you?
But that just tells you the plan is not to let him lead. The plan is give all the power to the UN. Let them make choices.
This is
our country.
This is what people need to. The Democrats say that they're trying to save America. What they really mean is that
they're trying to stop it.
Give us control of America so we can hand over power to the UN and we can become globalists. Yeah. That's what they really want. They'll wrap it in freedom and patriotism and we love America, but we know that's not true.
And you'll get your equality, all right?
Yeah.
Everyone poor.
We're going to have equality of outcome. Yeah,
everybody will be poor.
Everybody's going to be poor.
Right?
Everybody's going to live in a small little cookie cutter house, except us, because we're going to be at the top and we're going to be the leaders.
We have to decide really important things. So we're going to have our tax write-offs, and we're going to live in mansions, and have private islands like Obama, who made $100,000 a year, but somehow after 8 years he has a $60 million house on a $100 million island.
Trump truly loves America.
Where did that happen? Let's do the math for a second. How did Barack Obama, a guy who came from the bottom, like everyone says, he came from the bottom. He's a rags to riches president. It came out of nowhere. We all know that. Let's start from there. How did he go from going from college to being in the Senate to being a president, and now he's a literally millionaire? How does that happen?
It's not like he was in the Senate for 40 years. He was a one-time senator.
That's the definition of cronyism, and it's right in your face, and you don't even care.
I mean, political officials do not make a lot of money salary-wise. I mean, they do to everyday people, but not where you're going to amass hundreds of millions of dollars. How can you go from nothing to being that rich because you were bought out?
Yeah, cronyism.
Yep, you're corrupt. You took money from other countries. You took money from corporations. Whatever it was, you're bought and owned, bought and paid for, by the globalists, by the corporations. Trump now amassed billions of dollars on his own, and that's why the politicians hate him.
Yeah,
because nobody owns him. Nobody holds his purse strings.
Yeah.
He's going to be the only president that goes in to the presidency and leaves with less money.
Right.
All these other guys go in, maybe they got a little bit of money, come out super wealthy.
Yeah.
He's actually losing money. Now, why would he do that? Why would he have half the country hate him? Why would he go in rich and leave with less wealth? Why? Because he actually truly loves America. He truly loves Americans. And that's what he's fighting for. If you look at all his policies, it's all about bring jobs back to America. Cut taxes for the American people. Put more money. Deregulations. It truly is all for the American people and to keep our country
I've watched people
strong.
open up businesses that would not succeed in other places of the world.
Absolutely.
Like little record stores and stuff like that. Because of deregulation, and then they still hate Trump.
You look at the Democratic platform. What do they want to tax the wealthy? 70%? I mean, you're going to have a mass exodus out of the country. These rich people, they're not going to let you take 70% of their wealth. They're going to leave. They really will. So it's just, truly look at the policies. And why do you think Biden never talks about policy? He's been in politics his entire life, and he doesn't have one good policy. Look back. I mean, the one, big thing that he was behind was the 94 crime bill, and he denounces it now. Because it was aimed and targeted at blacks and minorities. So, if he's been in government all this time, doesn't have any good policies, and now he doesn't even know where he is half of the time, how is he going to actually lead the free world? How is he going to actually fight for your rights as an American and for our country as a whole? He's going to get walked all over by China, Russia, the entire world.
Yeah, when we get back from break, I want to talk about Kamala and Biden and some stuff about that. So
all right.
We'll be right back with you after this beautiful song I have for you.
Riding on Obama's coattails, biding his time till he derails, anticipating his next foul. One more bump on the campaign trail, another gaffe, another laugh. Oh no, you had your fun, a real good run, I know. Oh Joe, it's time to go, go, go. You're just so status quo. Both friend and foe know you're a no-go.
Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys. I got hairy legs, and I love kids jumping on my lap.
Poor kids are as bright as white kids, but they can't take the same buses. Why can't unwanted massages ever be a debate topic? You'd win them all just like the bro with Corn Pop. You're no outsider, just a liar. Please stop and drop. Joe, it's time to go, go, go. You're so status quo. Both friend and foe know you're a no-go.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone. Make sure the kids hear word.
He'll double NASA funding just to cross personal space. Put his foot in his mouth and somehow stay in the race. With policies as unsteady as his capricious teeth. Another milquetoast monarch.
say what I mean. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
So yeah, we just we were before the break. We were talking about Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the DNC. And I still want to touch on that a little bit. So Kamala Harris, she was running for president. We already showed you last episode how she got demolished by Tulsi Gabbard, and but we forgot to mention when she was talking and debating with Joe on the stage, she was calling him out on some pretty serious stuff.
And I will say also that in this campaign, we've also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden, I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me. So I will tell you that on this subject, it cannot be an intellectual debate among Democrats. We have to take it seriously. We have to act swiftly. As Attorney General of California, I was very proud to put in place a requirement that all my special agents would wear body cameras and keep those cameras on.
Senator Harris, thank you. Vice President Biden, you have been invoked. We are going to give you a chance to respond. Vice President Biden.
Mischaracterization of my position across the board. I did not praise racist. That is not true. Number one. Number two, if we want to have this campaign litigated on who supports civil rights and whether I did or not, I'm happy to do that. I was a public defender. I didn't become a prosecutor. I came out and I left a good law firm to become a public defender when in fact my city was in flames because of the assassination of Dr. King. Number one. Now, number two, as the Vice President of the United States, I work with a man who, in fact, we worked very hard to see to it we dealt with these issues in a major, major way. The fact is that in terms of busing, you would have been able to go to school the same exact way because it was a local decision made by your city council. That's fine. That's one of the things I argued for, that we should be breaking down these lines. But so the bottom line here is, look, everything I've done in my career, I ran because of civil rights. I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights. And those civil rights, by the way, include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
But Vice President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No,
do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well, there was a failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision. So that's where the
federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. That's why we need to pass the ERA, because there are moments in history where states fail to preserve the civil rights of all people.
I have supported the ERA from the very beginning when I ran.
Vice President Biden, 30 seconds, because I want to bring other people into this.
I supported the ERA from the very beginning. I'm the guy that extended the Voting Rights Act for 25 years. We got to the place where we got 98 out of 98 votes in the United States Senate doing it. I've also argued very strongly that we, in fact, deal with the notion of denying people access to the ballot box. I agree that everybody, once they, in fact, they should. Anyway, my time's up. I'm sorry.
Pretty much calling him a racist,
segregationist.
Yeah. And then she goes on Colbert this is before she got the selection to be the vice president. And Colbert was mentioning, you're on the short list as potential vice president. But what was this you said about him in the debate. So let's show that real quick.
Because in those debates, you landed haymakers on Joe Biden. I mean, his teeth were like chiclets all over the stage. And now I believe you that you're fully supportive of him. How does that transition happen? How do you go from being such a passionate opponent on such bedrock principles for you, and now you guys seem to be pals?
It was a debate.
Not everybody landed punches like you did, though.
It was a debate.
So you don't mean it?
It was a debate. That the whole reason, literally, it was a debate. It was called a debate.
I understand.
Traveled to the debate. There were journalists there covering the debate, where there would be a debate of differences of opinion and issues.
Okay.
I am 1,000% supportive of Joe Biden.
So she went after him. That's like, this was beef words right there. And her response was weird.
Well, she just didn't know what to say because she got called out. She just had that little evil laugh.
She just gives that evil laugh that she always does.
If you don't go to school, Kamala's going to put you and me in jail. Yes, we achieved intended effect.
It was a debate. What does that even mean? So you're admitting you were lying? I mean, because it's a debate? I don't understand what that meant.
It can mean two things, and they're both not good.
They're both bad.
One is that you lie in debates. That's horrible. That means nothing you say means anything because you're just trying to win. You're not authentic.
Exactly.
I believe that part. But I also believe that there's also truth to what she was saying as well.
Well, and secondly is, okay, that is true about him, and then you're just an opportunist. You don't even care about his policy or if he's a bad person. You just want to be the vice president, so you're willing to run on his ticket.
There is no alternate option there.
Yeah, they're
no matter
both
what,
bad.
she's just got trapped into a corner and exposed.
Yeah.
That should be on the front page of papers.
Whenever she gets called out and she gets caught in a lie or like gets in an uncomfortable situation, she just does that evil Joker laugh.
Yeah, like, just imagine if the tables were turned, right? Imagine if Trump said something about Pence, right? He called him out for whatever. And then he backed himself into a corner and made himself look like an idiot. You would not stop hearing about it for an entire week. It'd be on every single page.
24/7.
Every single page of news.
Yeah.
Every internet website. It'd be all over the place. It'd be in your face on Twitter. All over the place.
They'd be talking about it for the whole presidency.
Just like his last, he said something about the postal office and how it helps Democrats because of the fraud. And people won't shut up about it. Look, he admitted. No, he admitted that there's fraud.
Yeah.
And that fraud helps Democrats.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter who it helps. Fraud, you stop fraud.
Yeah. If it's illegal and you have fraud, you're going to stop that, especially when it's in the integrity of an election.
But that brings me to my next point, and then I'll let you take over. So the DNC was pushing this conspiracy theory about Trump stealing your mailboxes and not funding the postal service and screwing with the election, trying to win, trying to cheat. So the Postmaster General,
yep.
Louis DeJoy, gets in the Senate into a hearing, and he clears the air with everybody, and he tells everybody this is not true, that we're at 98% capacity right now. All the mailboxes are still there. He doesn't even know what to say about those photos. They're probably fake, he said. And so the Democrats kind of backed off. And then it seemed like at the end of the hearing, you see the Republicans getting all cocky, like, told you, none of this really matters. But then the media learns nothing from this. CNN made an article, 6 things to take away from the hearing. And it was all just like misdirection. None of them can admit that this is just a conspiracy theory, just like Russiagate, just like every other conspiracy that's been thrown at you in the last 4 years. It's been debunked. But no, they can't admit that. They can't recant their statements. Yeah. And half the country still thinks that he's stealing your mailboxes.
I just find it funny. The Democrats, whenever somebody says, and most of the time it's true. Whenever they're presented with facts that doesn't fit their narrative, they're like, oh, they're just crazy conspiracy theorists. Those right wingers, they're crazy conspiracy theorists. But then they turn around and they have all these conspiracy theories of their own. Yeah. And they're actually conspiracy theories. Right. They're all fake. They're all just made up to fit the narrative, none of them being true. And on the reverse side,
Right.
they're getting hit with truth from the Republicans, and they just write you off as a conspiracy theorist.
I think it's funny how before the Cold War ended, if you know your history, and this is you could go and fact check me on this. People in America on the left, mostly Democrat voters, were always the sympathetic towards the Russians. Oh, they're just people like us. We don't need to go to war with them. We don't need to hate them. Meanwhile, back then they were actually trying to destroy our country. The Soviets literally wanted to end America and take over America. That's a fact.
They wanted America to become communist.
Yeah, and then after the Cold War ends in 1989, the focus shifted. The Republicans stopped focusing on the Soviets because they're not Soviets anymore. They were just Russians. And then all of a sudden, the Democrats were looking at the Russians as the enemy, the evil empire. Even Obama said this. Let me show this clip real quick.
Governor Romney, I'm glad that you recognize that al-Qaeda is a threat, because a few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. Not al-Qaeda, you said Russia. In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back, because the Cold War has been over for 20 years. But, Governor, when it comes to our foreign policy, you seem to want to import the foreign policies of the 1980s.
So even Obama's telling you, cracking jokes saying, the Cold War called, they want their war back. The Cold War is over. It's been 30 years. The Soviet, Russian, left-wing socialists, gone. And the new enemy now is China. China's the one stealing our patents and spying on us.
China is a much bigger problem and a much bigger enemy than Russia is.
And now,
right now
you got Joe Biden saying things like, those are good folk, people. You guys think that China's going to control me if I'm president? Well, those are good. His response to that, instead of saying, no, I will never let them control me and I'll be strong on China, his response is,
China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man. They can't even figure out how to deal with the fact that they have this great division between the China Sea and the mountains in the west. They can't figure out how they're going to deal with the corruption that exists within the system. I mean, they're not bad folks, but guess.
He's saying, those are just good folk. Imagine if Trump during Russiagate, instead of saying, no, this isn't true, that I don't work for Russia, I work for America, which is what he's been saying. Imagine if Trump was like, well, they're good folk over there. Who cares? Who cares about Russia?
There it is. There's the proof. He's owned by Russia.
That's what they would say. Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
So it's just the double standards are insane. And by the way, all those photos of the mailboxes that were fake, that were proven fake, they're still up on Facebook and Twitter. And you know how they do that little flag thing where they says false information, CY? There's none of that for those.
No,
those are all still circulating around the internet. People still think they're real.
They never fact check the left.
Dude, they fact check questions now. I saw a friend of mine who's a conservative post a question. He asked why Bill Clinton was speaking at the DNC. I'm not even making this up. I'm not adding anything to it. All he did was ask that question. He got fact checked. False information, CY.
Yeah, and I think they said it was misleading
because
or something.
Bill Clinton's name was in
It's a question. Like
you can't. It's not a. You can't fact check a question. It's not a fact to begin with.
It was about a picture. It was a picture with Bill Clinton and one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims.
Right.
Yep.
So how do you
anything?
fact check a question?
It wasn't a photoshopped, picture. That would be the only way you could say it was false, and the only way you could even try and say, but no, it was a real picture.
I'm not that smart.
Real.
Listen, I'm not that smart. I'm not a genius. I don't have the super high IQ. If I can notice these things, and not only notice them, like I can look into them and find out that this is not just me. There's other people saying the same thing as me. This is real stuff. Why can't you too? I just don't. How do you not see this? It's so obvious.
Nobody's been tougher on China than Trump. I mean, the trade deal he struck with them was incredible for our country. I mean, they were taking advantage of us, importing. We buy the majority, most of their exports, China, we buy. And they were just getting to bring it in for free and constantly stealing our patents, and we had no way to enforce, the patent infringement. And so, I mean, Trump really struck a great deal with them. He's been tougher on China and Russia than anybody in recent memory. So
now I can't speak on this as anything to go off of any evidence, but I just want to point out that it's a little strange that as soon as, remember the tariff war that no one talks about anymore? Let's see, why do people don't talk about the tariff war anymore? Because Trump won the tariff war.
We won the war, yep.
He just did.
Absolutely.
He got the deal done. He
Yep.
made a deal with China that says they can no longer steal our patents. They would have to submit to the worldwide patent laws. And China, in return, has to buy out, I forgot the dollar amount, for farming in America. So they had to pretty much give money too. Huge win for America.
Yeah.
As soon as that happened, coronavirus hit.
Yep.
And the coronavirus came from China.
Yep.
So it just makes you wonder.
A lot of
It's a
people
little
think,
suspicious right there.
A lot of people think that it was weaponized or purposely released, and then they pretended that it was an accident to blow back from they got
from the tariff war.
They got hurt. Yeah, that significantly hurt them and lowered China's power when it came to trading with the U.S.
And then on top of it all,
he really
now we're getting Alex Jonesy right here, but it's cool, it's juicy, it's fun. On top of it all, the WHO are the ones that were pushing the whole mask thing, right? The WHO is mostly run by Chinese health officials. It's a global entity, I get that, but China being the huge population, the huge presence they have in the global health
and the money that they pump into
it benefited them because they were the ones exporting masks. So it was almost like they added in their own deal to the farming tariff thing, like buy our masks here. Yeah. Here's a virus.
I remember when the whole tariff war was going on.
I can't prove that. I'm not saying that's true, but it looks a little suspicious.
It does, yeah. And like I said, I don't know if that really was what happened, but it all lines up where it makes you think, was that payback? Did they release the virus?
Yeah. It also doesn't help them if Trump wins another election either.
No, because they know that they'll be able to walk all over Biden.
Yeah.
And so they know that they can't do that to Trump. They tried and they failed. I remember when during the tariff wars, Trump imposed the 25% tariff on Chinese goods. Our country's going to be destroyed. This is terrible, blah, 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 blah. Everything's going up. And I talked to a lot of people and I said, well, don't you want American jobs? Don't you want things made in America? Wouldn't you rather buy American goods? China had such a big advantage and they have such cheaper labor, we couldn't compete. Yeah. So that 25% tariff raised the level. It's like, okay, well now our American goods can get more reasonably priced compared to the Chinese goods.
Do you know how much that hurts America in general? The poor, that hurts the poor the most. Okay, let me think about this. Let's think about, you call it trickle-down economics, whatever you want to call it. You hate capitalism. You want to have all these buzzwords that your Marxist teacher taught you. But let's really break down what this means. If another country was allowed to steal all the patents and sell these products for cheaper than we sell them for, think about how it hurts us, okay? So you have a product, let's say GoPro, for example. You got a patent on this beautiful that is light years ahead of everything else, and you price it at $100. I'm just throwing numbers out there. China comes and steals the patent. They'll sell them for $60. So now you, instead of selling products at a rate beyond measurement, because you're the only one that holds the patent, now you're curbed down to 20% of what you were going to sell it for. Now all that tax money that was going to stay in America to help social services, food stamps, welfare, that's drastically hit now. You have to lower your prices to keep up with the Chinese, not just China, but just the global market in general. So you have to lower your prices. That means lower tax income. It all hurts the people on the bottom.
Well, and it's possible from getting undercut that company folds and all those American jobs are lost.
Right, and you can't hire more people. Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, it has a huge effect. And before, we had no way to go after them for infringing on our patents. Now we can.
And the next thing I wanted to say about that, on the other side of the aspect, the manufacturing side of the aspect, okay? When you allow them to dominate the global market and that you allow them to set the prices of manufacturing lower than ours, what happens is, I'm a business owner, right? I don't know. I make T-shirts or something, and I can open up a plant in America to to make chandeliers or something. I can open up a plant in America, and it'll cost me whatever, $700,000 per capita or whatever. And then, but I look over at China, and I can open up a plant over there, half the price and it's fine. I can just export it back here, sell it just like that. I'm going to take that offer. But when the way to fight that is by leveling the global market and making your product supreme.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and the whole tariff thing, that helps level the playing field.
Yeah.
Are you going to go all the way to China and then have to pay to import the stuff back into the U.S.? Now, is it worth all that trouble just to save a couple bucks? Especially when now they can incentivize you by opening up your company in a manufacturing plant in the U.S. and they'll give you tax cuts and all that. Now it's like, okay, wow, now I'm probably better off staying stateside, you know, supplying American jobs. You can slap that made in the U.S. label on it. And people always say they want to buy U.S. products and they want U.S. jobs, but then they buy the cheap Chinese, product because it's cheaper.
Right.
They look at the two prices. Oh, I buy the cheaper one.
Yeah.
Well, you got to realize when you do that, you are harming American jobs. You are harming American security. If you truly want American jobs and you want America to be a great country, and you want, to buy stuff that's made in America, you need to pay a little more and buy the American product.
And when you keep manufacturing here in this country, now the local people who aren't as skilled, don't have as much education, could go and work for you, make $15, $20 an hour.
Absolutely.
Instead of having some Chinese people working over in China and making whatever money they make.
And that's what Trump was trying to get us back to. Over the years.
You claim to care about, that brings me to this topic right here. You claim to care about laboring and the standard of work. And you're by allowing manufacturing to go overseas, you're literally making someone overseas work at a standard way lower than ours. Sweatshops, basically. They got nets in China. People that work for iPhone companies jump off the buildings. So they are putting nets around the building so they can't die. So people wrote, this has been written about in history, right? So let's start in the beginning. Now, whether you like it or not, your ideology is shaped by two books. The Bible of the West, the Bible is the West, the Vedas is in the East, okay? The credit and debit system started from in China, and the credit and debit is actually from karma and dharma. So that ideology is literally embedded in the subconscious of the people, because for thousands and thousands of years, these are things that were taught to people that became embedded in their subconscious. And the West, the Bible, whether you like it or not, it shapes our morals and the way we think, the way we have free markets, the way we interact with each other. Then eventually a man named Plato wrote the Republic. He wrote about the Senate. He wrote about representation of government for the people. This changed the world as we know it.
Absolutely. Our country, the United States, people like to call it a democracy. It's actually a republic.
Yeah.
So Senate and us being a republic is based on the republic in Plato in Greece.
Yeah. So that changed the West.
Absolutely.
Another book that changed the East, The Art of War. The Art of War, really, if you really look at The Art of War, it teaches you how to really be deceitful, how to win.
Yeah, it's all about strategy.
Strategy, yeah.
And, outsmarting your opponent.
People apply this to business. You can
divide and conquer. Divide and conquer.
Yep. You see this ideology in the East.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Yep.
So then that brings us back to the West again. A man named Niccolo Machiavelli wrote The Prince, and he exposed the ills of government. People who are staying in government too long and get too comfortable, powerful and greedy. And he writes about how populism is what people are really striving for. People want a leader. People want somebody who's going to stand up. And this book's so relevant today, it's not even funny. And after that, a few hundred years later, Adam Smith writes The Wealth of Nations. This is what shaped capitalism in the West. Okay, this book tells you about stocks, open markets, private property, laboring, how to pay people fairly. The entire system of capitalism, how it should be, is in this book right here. And this is how we shaped our system. And then finally, whether you like it or not, our world has been affected drastically by this book right here, The Communist Manifesto. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels wrote this book. And it's basically a response to not only this, but also to Judeo-Christian values. And it's basically a religion of revolution, that you didn't build your company, your workers did. we should all be equally paid. And it doesn't matter that you took out a loan and risk your entire livelihood to start a business that might fail. And a lot of businesses do fail, by the way. So if those businesses failed, why don't the workers have to be in debt with them?
Yeah, they don't lose anything.
So
they lose a job, but they don't lose any, of their wealth. They don't lose any of their savings. They didn't put anything up.
If you really want to dig deep into the answers of right wing versus left wing, freedom, equality,
equality of outcomes.
Yeah, no. But I want to be fair. I want to be fair to the left. They want equality. But if you so remember that. Okay, when you're thinking about equality versus freedom, which one's more important? Read this book right here, The Wealth of Nations. Absorb it as much as you can, and then look at what Marx says about it, and you'll be able to see holes right through it.
Yeah,
absolutely. You'll be able to poke holes right through it and all its lies.
I mean, that book did
can't have equality.
That book shaped our world negatively. That's where Marxism, communism, socialism came from. And people say it's not a religion. It is. It's a religion. It's based on atheism. The government is your god.
Identity politics.
Absolutely.
That people should be treated differently based on the color of their skin.
Yep.
Now, it literally tells you to be racist.
Yeah. Now,
and sexist.
On that topic about socialism and Marxism, I just got to say, socialism is insanity. I mean, it's been tried over and over and over again, and every single time it fails. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I don't know why people don't look. I guess people just don't know history. Every time it's been tried, it's been failed miserably. Great, powerful economies, that were capitalist, switched to socialism, and within years are just completely decimated.
George Orwell wrote a book. It's about this guy who he's super strong, super fast, super smart, and he lives in this world, in this society where they want equality. No matter what, everyone has to be equal. So for him to be equal to everybody else, they had to tie iron weights on his arm, so he had to be weighed down on one side. Yep. They had to tie his legs together so he couldn't run fast. They had to put stuff on his head so he couldn't move around as good, and they had to weigh him down.
They had to take away his freedom and oppress him
to everybody else.
Yeah. They had to take away his freedom and oppress him. That's crazy.
It explains what this is all about. This is all about, in a good society. Now, Confucius said this: when a country is well governed, poverty and a mean condition are things to be ashamed of. When a country is ill governed, riches and honor are things to be ashamed of. Now, think about that. We were talking about these two books right here. And this book right here, Wealth of Nations, talking about how in a free market society with private property, you strive for wealth. The people on top push the needle forward so that the people on bottom can come with them. So a new computer comes out that's $2,000. You can't afford it today. In 5 years from now, that computer's gonna be $200. You have it.
And that's the American dream right there.
Because these people pushed for it, and now you can have it. Now, in this society, shame on you for being rich and hoarding all your wealth. That's what we're living in today. So you couldn't have said it better. If you're ashamed of pushing the needle forward, that's an ill-governed society. Period.
You want to motivate people to work hard and to acquire wealth and to get their own house and acquire their own property. When and that's truly the American dream. And in that free market capitalism, everybody has that opportunity. It's freedom of opportunity. Yeah. Anybody can come here, work hard, build up. Even Goya Beans. He's an immigrant. He is an American success story. He is the American dream. He came here. He started a company. He thrived, and now he's able to bring himself out of nowhere. And it's just truly everybody has that opportunity here. Now, what the left is trying to do now is eliminate that, and that's exactly what you were just talking about with the quote. They're just trying to shame on you, Rich. Shame on you. You worked harder than me, but give me some of your money. We all need to be equal. Right. We want equal opportunity, not equal outcome. Yeah. And there, couldn't be truer. Yeah. And on that same topic, we're talking about freedom and communism, oppression, socialism. I want to touch on Kamala Harris. She straight up, she owns a gun. Let's get that straight first. She actually owns a gun, but she doesn't want you to own a gun. She came out and said that if she was ever to become president or get into power, she wants mandatory gun buybacks. Now everybody knows if it's mandatory, that's gun confiscation wrapped in a pretty bow. It's not optional, so it's not a buyback. If it's mandatory, it's confiscation. And then the left is also censoring. We're seeing that constantly with Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. They're censoring the right and fact-checking the right, unfairly. Left, they can say whatever they want. Never fact-check them, even if it's an outright lie. And we're seeing that. You have Anomaly, which is he's actually a former liberal, and he's an environmentalist. And he finally dug into Trump because at first he didn't like Trump, and he looked into him, and he actually started to see, wow, actually Trump has good policies. He actually does care about the country. Make a long story short, now he's more conservative.
Yeah.
And anyways,
same thing happened to me in 2016.
They banned him from live streaming from Facebook for 30 days from a post that was 2 years old. The post was about peace. Like, it was from an imam, and it was about peace. And they banned him, and he couldn't get a straight answer from them. They said, nope, you can't live stream for 30 days. And the algorithm that Facebook used, he was at like 42% for recommendations. So like if you were watching a video in that same, line of thinking, he would be one of the first videos to play right next. After his 30-day ban, the recommendations went from 42% to 10. So they're actively trying to destroy him.
Yeah.
I mean, and so the censoring and the banning, and then you have a company like Goodyear, an American company, comes out and says, they had like a presentation, like a PowerPoint. One of their employees took a picture of it, and it was company wide. They said, this is what is acceptable. This is what it is not. They said MAGA gear, Trump gear, Trump hats, shirts, whatever, not allowed. Blue Lives Matter, supporting the police, not allowed. But Black Lives Matter, that's okay. LGBTQ, that's okay. I mean, just showing the bias, it's just it's unbelievable. And it's like, then they come out and say, well, we don't want any politics. Okay, well, if that's okay, then fine. Okay, well, then that doesn't work because Black Lives Matter is political. Just like Blue Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, same thing. One's, supporting Black lives and, against police brutality. One is supporting our police and our law enforcement. So it's just unbelievable. The bias and the bans and then the mandates, and Joe Biden wants to do mask mandates. And when are people going to start to see that our rights are being trampled? I mean, are we going to really remain free if the left gets in power? They're getting more and more radical. They're not even hiding that they're socialists anymore. They straight out come out and say it. Well, they said in the DNC, they said our platform, our Democratic platform, is based on Bernie Sanders. Now, everybody knows that Bernie is a socialist, and he's proud of it, and he thinks that Cuba's great and Venezuela's great, and he comes out and says that they have great things in place.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up about Bernie Sanders, right? So when Bernie Sanders was really starting to blow up back in 2016, and he was really starting to become really popular, and people were defending him as he's a democratic socialist. That's different. But all you got to do is pull up the Communist Manifesto written by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, and it tells you position of the communists in relation to various existing parties around the world. In Switzerland, they support the radicals without losing the sight of the fact that this party consists of antagonist elements of democratic socialists. In the French sense, the same thing. In Poland, they support the party that insists on arguing revolution. Germany, democratic socialists. Talking about all these parties around the world. Communism doesn't want to be a party. Communism wants to be the global hand that controls the democratic socialist parties in every country. Yep. That's how this thing works. He even wrote about Germany. This is before Hitler. Let me give you some context. This is before Hitler, and he talks about how Germany is the perfect system. They have the perfect socialism that everybody should have. And what was the direct result of socialism in Germany?
You got Nazism. And then you got the
National Socialist Party.
And then they turned that.
There are two things that don't mix, nationalism and socialism.
Yeah. And then how many? 11 million Jews were killed under Nazism?
6 million Jews were killed. There's 10 million people in the war in general, but in the camps it was 6 million Jews, 2 million Poles, which was 8 million total. And then I think that with the war it was like 10 million people, 10 million innocent people died. Then in Russia, communist Russia, 100 million people.
Well, let's look about communist China with Mao.
Yeah,
it was like
hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah, I mean it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
If you look,
yeah,
communism.
The Russians and Chinese communists killed 20 times, 100 times more than Hitler killed. And no one everyone always wants to talk about Nazis and Antifa and neo-Nazis, those are the bad guys. Well, if that's, and under your own logic, if those are the real bad guys, then the super evil demons are the communists who killed hundreds of millions instead of tens of millions.
People want to talk about like the horrors of the United States history and how the oppression and
those
slavery.
China people are good folk.
Yeah, oppression and slavery and the white man, and he killed people and he had slaves and this and that. Look at communism. Yeah. No system, we're going to call it a religion because it really is.
Always ends the same.
It always ends in death, destruction, despair. And you look at the numbers, communism has killed so many more than any free market, free country. Like, it's not even close. And it's actually, you look at the numbers, they're staggering.
And they always say, well, they never did it right.
Yeah.
They never did it the real way.
Yeah,
Stalin took over and it got ruined. Hitler took over and it got ruined. Mao took over and it got ruined.
Yeah.
Well, why does it keep getting taken over and getting ruined? Yeah. Because of the system that's in place.
That's the insanity I was talking about. They always try and say it was just not done right. Yeah, it can't be done right because it's
even
not.
Even if it starts off great. Oh, everybody's equal. We're utopia. Give it 20 years. It's gonna fall into the hands of a dictator, and they're gonna change it, and it's gonna get worse. Because when you have socialism, it means no matter what, in order for socialism to work, you need a strong central government.
Yep.
When you have a strong central government, it's a ticking time bomb. Yep. As soon as it gets in the hands of the wrong person, it's over with.
Yeah, it always starts out the same. They need a strong government. They disarm the population. Only the government and the military has weapons. And then, like you said, it gets in the wrong hands, and now the people can't even fight back. That's why the Second Amendment was put into place. That's why the Second Amendment is so popular. It's to protect our country from foreign and domestic enemies. Domestic being a lot of the times a tyrannical government, and then foreign being, obviously the rest of the world.
Yeah.
When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, they actually were talking about attacking the United States mainland. And the reason that they decided against it was because of how many guns the civilians had. They knew that the civilians would be able to hold them off until the military came to back them up.
Yeah.
And that's why they bombed Pearl Harbor, because it's an island. It's not like attacking the mainland. So it's pretty incredible. And it's just, I mean, there's two major systems that have affected the world, like you said.
And then just look how obvious they are. In the DNC, when it's time for the national anthem, they tell you to kneel or rise. It's your choice.
Yeah.
Now, who's the one dividing the country? Is it Trump or is it you telling people to kneel or rise?
Yeah.
Literally dividing the people on national television.
Kneel or rise.
Kneel or rise.
Your preference.
Your choice. That's not division.
Yeah, exactly. We should all be, united. We should all be rising.
Yeah. And I want to say one more thing too, and I don't know how much more.
We're good. We're okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence right now to look at just to tell you what's going to happen in this election. One, you just look at Biden. All right, is he better than Hillary Clinton or is he worse? He's worse. He really is. Say what you want about Hillary Clinton, she was evil, whatever. She was way more alert than Joe Biden is.
Well, she at least knew where she was.
So that's the one thing. unless she was falling on the ground. But then you look at other things, right? You look at these like little polls, there's one in Minnesota right now. It says they're dead even right now. This is a blue state, saying that Donald Trump and Biden are dead even right now. In Minnesota, if Trump wins Minnesota, that's over. There's not even a chance that the Democrats could win the election if Trump wins Minnesota. But I want to also point to Florida. Florida is always the closest state. It is the ultimate swing state, the one that it's just a purple state. It's not a red state. It's not a blue state. It's a purple state. Laura Loomer just won the primary for Republican. She's one of the most far-right people you can think of. She gets a lot of hate. She gets hated on as a racist and all this stuff. None of it's really true. She really just loves America, and she supports Trump. She just wants America to come back to where it was before, 10, 20 years ago.
Glory, yeah.
And she just resoundingly won the nomination. And it's right. It just tells you where people are looking right now. Just like the post we saw on Twitter, on a post where all her followers are Democrats, she still loses 90% to 9%. This is little. I want people to pay attention to these little things. Stop looking at CNN polls. CNN polls were never right. They were wrong in 2016 and they're wrong today.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're doubling down on everything. Everything they said about everything they went for in 2016 that failed. They're doubling down and think if they just keep trying, it'll happen again. Stephen Colbert and Trevor Noah and all these late night shows are saying the same stuff, twisting the same narratives, and they're sending it right down your throat. You're going to buy it. You're going to listen to us, and everything's going to be fine. And they don't realize it's backfiring.
Yeah.
People are not stupid. We live in the age of the internet. This could have worked 20 years ago, when not everybody had a computer and a cell phone. But now people can do the research a lot easier, and they thought that was going to help them. Like Silicon Valley, these people, these elitists thought that controlling the web means controlling the world. But really, people have access to all the information in the world. They find the truth out of it.
Yeah, and that's what we're saying. People need to do their due diligence. You really do need to. And with this upcoming election, let's make something clear. This is not Trump versus Biden. This is Trump versus not Trump. 58% of people that say they support Biden say that they don't. It's because they don't like Trump. People don't like Biden for his policies.
And it's not even that either.
But what you need to understand is if you vote for Biden, even Biden himself said he's a transitional candidate. Everybody knows he would not finish his first term. So when you're looking at it, you need to look at Trump versus Kamala Harris.
But also,
and her far left radicalism.
It's not even about Trump either. It's about his policy.
It's his policies.
Forget about Trump.
But Trump has policies.
Forget about Trump as a person and his tweets and all that stuff. Let's look at what is he trying to do. Yeah. Did you get your business off the ground in the last couple of years because of deregulation and tax cuts? That's a good thing, right?
What I meant, though, is when I said Trump, I meant he actually has policies. He's full of policies. Right. Biden has no policies. He's just like, I'm a nice guy. I'm better than Trump.
Right. No, exactly.
Trump's evil. I'm okay.
But I'm saying when it comes down to you're voting. This November, we're not voting for the person. We're voting for ideology right now. Yeah. We're at a fork in the road in this country. Do we want to go with the global mainstream light socialism that everyone's living on in Europe, or do you want to stick with American values, free market, private property, protect yourself, protect your First Amendment rights, have freedom of speech? Do you want that, or do you want?
It truly is Trump really for freedom and Trump for a strong America, or Biden for globalism and socialism. And it's just I personally, I don't want to be oppressed. I don't want somebody to tell me that what I can and can't do. I want to be able to make my own choices. Yeah. And I always thought people did too. I just think a lot of the people that are supporting Biden and the Democratic Party and the socialism thing, it's not really. They're just kind of like the minions. They don't understand what they're asking for.
They really don't.
They've been brainwashed by the mainstream media is the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. These universities and the schools nowadays are owned, and run by the Democrats, and so they're brainwashing these kids at a young age, and they have no idea. They think socialism is some great utopia. They have no idea. If they actually get what they want, they're going to be like, "Oh, I'm
glad you brought that up, okay? Because I just saw something the other day that blew me away, and it was that in school, and these little 5th grade kids, 4th grade kids, they're taking these tests. There's math tests. This is a math class, right? And the test question was, if 400 white people went into a store and 300 cops came in and there was 20 black people there, how many people would be oppressed? It was something along the lines of that. And they were like inserting racist ideology and identity politics in math questions early. Like it's like they're not even hiding anymore.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it just doesn't. Think about this. Supposedly, the Democrats always call the Republicans racist, but who is the only party that constantly talks about race?
Right.
The Republicans never talk about race.
All they talk about is race.
The Democrats only talk about race. Who's the racists? Who was the party that started the KKK? The Democrats.
Who was the party that freed the slaves?
Who was the
Republicans.
Who was the party that had slaves and fought to keep the slaves? The Democrats. The Republicans fought a bloody war to
Who was
free
the party
slaves.
that wants everybody on food stamps and welfare, then can't get a job and has to live in the projects?
Exactly. It's,
Democrats.
It's, you know,
modern day slavery.
You want to look at the poorest, most
Just
oppressive
vote for us.
The poorest,
That's all
most
you gotta
oppressive
do.
cities in the country
Yeah.
are all Democrat run.
Yeah. Look at California. You got tent cities going on.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So I just tell people, do their due diligence, open your eyes, look beyond the news and the media, look for yourself for the facts. So it's there's just
it's crazy, man.
It truly is. So I don't know if you want
Let's end it on that.
to end it on that
Yeah.
note. All right. So thank you guys. This is episode 5 of All Things Truth. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'd just like to say God bless you and God bless America.